What up, what up, what up? Hope everybody's having a great start to their Monday. This is gonna be an interesting conversation. It's probably gonna be a quick conversation because I'm in pain. I'm a little messed up today. So, which was actually the backdrop of our conversation today. Um, but some interesting things have happened for me in the last 2 weeks. That happened around the holiday sometimes. I caught the flu that then turned into bronchitis 2 weeks ago. Not a strong case, a mild case of bronchitis, self-diagnosed. I didn't go to a doctor, which we're going to talk about as well today. Then I started to be on the mend, started feeling better as well. I've been having some tooth issues, and I had a tooth infection that got really, really bad, and so I am still dealing with that right now. Um, it doesn't hurt as much to talk, but we'll see how long I can make this thing last. Pause. So it was interesting. I had to go to the dentist today, and mind you, don't judge me. I ain't been to the dentist in 10 plus years, right? And usually it's because it's like nothing's really wrong. That was a lie. That was wrong, completely wrong. Um, and so I discovered that today, but my infection didn't start until like Saturday, and so I did what a lot of fellas do. So it's like it'll subside. I'm gonna take some Advil, and I'll be all right. That was maybe Friday night, Friday or Saturday night. Sunday started feeling not any better. I'm taking some Advil, take some stronger Advil. That's still not working. So yesterday, at my wife's behest, right? Thank God for our wives because I don't think that we go to the doctor nearly as much as we should. And studies show actually, if you get married, you live 30% longer, you make 30% more money, and you tend to have a more rich, happy life. So this case for marriage there. Even if you risk divorce or any of those other things that the male guys have talked about, just something to consider. So I'm saying all that to say, if you see me doing this at any point tonight, it's because my jaw pause is hurting and my gum is inflamed. So I'm trying to wait till I get to the pharmacy so I can get my medication. Not that you need to know all the business, but that's why we're going a little bit early, and that's why you'll see me doing that throughout the conversation. So as I was sitting in the dentist's office today, waiting to be seen, I started to think about like, dang man, like this freaking sucks. I'm gonna have to go to the dentist. It's gonna be painful, not only physically because the way that my infection is manifesting, it's causing me not to be able to open my mouth to even eat, to consume food really without pain, like not excruciating pain, but high discomfort. And so I'm like, man, this is some bull. And then for me, there's always duality. I always try to see the good in challenging situations. And so I was like, well, I've been trying to lose some weight. This will help, in that weight loss. But then I was thinking like, man, it's gonna cost a lot of money. Like, and I talked to my homeboy. My homeboy put some things in perspective. He's like, yo, bro, it took me 4 years to have my teeth like back in a really, really good space. He said, so give yourself time. And so I was sitting in the doctor's office. I started to think about style because my mind always works with consciousness, how you construct your style, and ultimately what that says about you. And even in life, a lot of times we don't realize the importance of pain, like what pain actually is used for. We try to moralize it and make it a bad thing, but pain is actually very important and it's a necessary good for us in a lot of spaces. Um, but two, we don't realize how pain can work for us. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. You heard what I was going through. This pain forced me to finally go to the dentist. And I'm not a person who's like afraid of the dentist. I just don't. I honestly am more afraid of the bill than I am of going to the dentist. My thing has always been like you go to the dentist when I lived in New York, and I went to go get a tooth cleaning. It was like a teeth cleaning. It was I think $400. I was like, I will not be back here. But I learned something important today. This is not a dental talk, but I'm gonna have some touch points because I learned these things. Like for me, going to get my teeth cleaned just seemed like a vanity thing to try to get money out of me. And I had a dope dentist today who was like, "No, taking care of your teeth is actually about taking care of your bones and your jaw structure." So whether we realize it or not, our teeth are bones, right? And so we don't want our bones to become brittle. We don't want them to become fragile and start to break. That's when you start seeing people lose their teeth and having to have teeth replaced and all those other different types of things. It is a lack of bone strength and a bone uh, solitude that is keeping your teeth where they are. And so when I started thinking about that, I was like, oh, okay. So when I started getting this pain in my jaw, boss, I was like, oh, this was a signal. Now, when I start talking to guys about style, you've heard me say, like, if you've been rocking with me, but I always tell clients, um, you got to superficially suffer. And when they're first working with me, they're like, what does that mean? That means you came in at the last moment. We're going to do everything that we can in order to accommodate you, but you may have to just take the L on this and look a little crazy when you go to this situation. Now, when I'm working with clients, I do my best to alleviate that challenge for them. But the reality of it is sometimes you just need to suffer superficially. So this happened to a client of mine. He was attending a wedding. He wasn't getting married. And sorry, I'm gonna move so I can see everybody's chat. Dang, all my lights just wanted to make me superficially suffer, I guess, today. Unplug one of these in. My goodness. See, that's my bad for not making sure that joint was charged. So when he came in, he was attending a wedding. He needed a look in, this was a few years ago, so he needed a look in about a week. We fit him. There were going to be a lot of alterations. And I was like, bro, I don't feel comfortable making these adjustments and then sending you on your way with, a day's notice. And he kind of got up in arms. And I was like, listen, I'm happy to do my best to do make that happen, but I'm just telling you, have a backup plan. And so he came in a little upset that Thursday or Friday, our tailor, we were pushing him to try to get it done. He couldn't get it done. So I called him, came in a little upset. He wasn't irate, but he was definitely, voice was raised. And we were able to calm him down. And I had a conversation with him simply saying, hey, definitely understand your frustration. I just want to give you some timelines to just think about. If we're doing anything ready to wear, we probably need about 2 weeks. If we're doing anything that's custom, we need about 8 to 10 weeks. And he was like, 8 to 10 weeks. I was like, yes, we need 6 to 8 weeks for the item to get here. Then I ideally want another 2 weeks for us to be able to make any adjustments that we need to. Now, this was because we didn't have a tailor on site. There were a lot of logistical things that we had to worry about. Now, with the company that I work with, they have tailors on site. I can turn anything around usually in about 24 hours. No problem. I'm never worried about that. But there is something to be said when you superficially suffer, when you're in pain from superficial space. Now, this doesn't mean or minimize the experience or the feelings that you have. And pain is going to usually show up in three areas. The first two we're going to talk about because they're immediate from the psychological side. The other two, or the other one, is going to be in the construction of your category and ultimately of the communication. We're going to talk about how you can navigate through those things so that you can feel and look better. You'll feel and look more confident. So the first psychological pain that most people are going to go through is the feeling of embarrassment. So I had a homie client. He came in. He was one of those like last minute guys, and he was in a panic. And I was like, "What's going on, bro?" Like, we made a custom piece for him, and he was like, "Yo, bro, what did y'all do?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What did we do?" He was like, "My joint doesn't fit anymore." And I was like, "Relax." I didn't say that, but I was thinking, relax. He's like, "But my suit doesn't fit anymore." Now, mind you, we're never allowed to be honest with our clients and saying like, "Bro, you look like you gained a good 45 pounds." So my suit didn't do anything. Your body did something different, right? I can't say that. That's not professional. That's not going to be taken well, right? So I'm like, yeah, it looks like that doesn't fit anymore. Is there anything we could do? I said, listen, we can let out everything and see what we have available to you. And he was like, bet, like let's do that. Cool. When do you need this? He was like, I need this in like 4 days. I don't know if we can do that. Right. Luckily for him, we were able to navigate that. But part of me wanted to just let him go into the space embarrassed. Now we were going to find some alternatives. For me, what I was looking to do was to put him in like a sport coat. He had a gray suit, so we was going to wear the gray trousers that still kind of fit. We could let out the seat. There were some things that we could do there quickly, but the jacket was going to be a lot of work. And so I was like, you should suffer. You should superficially suffer. You should feel what that pain of embarrassment looks like for two reasons. One, he had let himself go. He knew he had let himself go after we had a conversation. He was just like, yeah, bro, I've been being lazy. He had gotten with this lady. They were on the steady, feeling good. Everything was good. And so he just kind of let himself, quote unquote, go. And if that's your practice, that's fine. But when that's not how I knew him and how I experienced him, there was something deeper going on, right? So we started having a conversation. We did some life coaching developments and helped him get back on track. But the benefit of him being embarrassed, part of him feeling embarrassed, even when we were meeting together, was I don't ever want to feel this pain again. Have you ever tried to talk to a chick, especially when you were younger, and you went up, tried to talk to her, probably used your smoothest line, you know what I'm saying? Probably made your voice a little bit deeper. Yo, what's up, baby? And she hit you with the Negro, please, like, and walked off, right? And she did it in front of friends. Well, a guy can react two ways to that because this happened to me. When I was in high school, wanted to talk to a chick, we were at the mall. If you was outside, you know what happened at the mall, right? Social City. And I approached this young lady. She was a group of her friends, and tried to talk to her, tried to shoot. And she played me super to the left, to the point like her friends were laughing. And I remember wanting to go back to a homie who told me like, what's the worst thing that a girl's gonna say is no. And I was like, bullshit. She can laugh in your face. Like she can do a whole lot more than no. And I realized in that moment I could do one of two things. I could retreat back into, corner and feel bad about myself, or I could, take my face off the floor, right, put it back together, and then think about the fact that there was 400 other young ladies in the mall that I also was attracted to as a 15-year-old, young man. And when I talked to two or three other girls, it became a funny story. I saw the girl because she went to my high school again, and she was always cool after that. Like we just got cool. It wasn't any bad blood. It was just like this is what it is. You weren't feeling me. On to the next one. And so there's the other guys who take that, internalize that, and make themselves feel like they're somehow unworthy when they just really just made a missed take. And that's why I always like to say that style is about storytelling, because sometimes you need to make an edit, sometimes you need to make a revision, sometimes you need to do a rewrite, right? But the great thing about that is you told that story to one audience, you told that style story to one audience. So if it didn't land, you make some adjustments and tell it to another audience, or you can come back and tell that to the same audience, because 9 times out of 10 they don't even remember what you put on. That's just the reality of it. So when we start talking about the pain of embarrassment, usually it is all up here. Most people don't even really know what's going on, because we're keeping it real. Most people have a quote unquote fashion sense, but they don't really have any understanding about style. So it's interesting when you really start having an understanding of your personal style, what works for you, what works for your body type, your silhouette, your structure, your psychological perspective, how you move, and the places that you hang. People will try to clown you and they'll try to embarrass you, and it always backfires. Because one, you always look like you're on point because you look like yourself and there's authenticity there. But on an even deeper level, there is this competency that they can't deny, they can't minimize, right? Like I know what works for my body, I know what works for my personality, I know what works for how I like to move, I know what works for the type of young lady that I'm trying to attract. So yes, you can clown. I wasn't trying to talk to your ass anyway, right? And there's an awareness of that space that helps you elevate, right? So then the next painful space that people find themselves in is the feeling of rejection. And I was just talking about that rejection. There's a space where I think a lot of guys get embarrassment and rejection kind of convoluted. They mix those two up. Embarrassment usually is not something that really bothers a lot of guys in real life if they are having success. I'll give you an example. I was a kid who had some vertical abilities when I was young, right? And I remember being a high school freshman, being able to dunk. Friends had seen me dunk. Um, I had done some things in practice where coaches seen me do some stuff. Right. So first play of the game, of the season was against kind of a out of district rival. You guys have districts or city like your different areas. And first play of the game, tip happens. I'm denying the ball. They got the ball. Boom. I get a steal. Boom. I'm off to the races. And I'm like, freshman year, first game of the season. I'm about to punch this bitch, and I'm going to be the motherfucking man tomorrow. Right. And at the time, my hands weren't big enough to palm a ball. So how I dunked was I would cup it. Boom. Right. Cup. I go up. I know that I got over the rim, but have you ever seen like somebody who gets over the rim, but that last piece of the ball is like 85%. So technically I did not get over the rim, but right, 80% of the ball is over, and boom, hit. I don't fall, thank God. I don't fall, but like you come down, ball's missed. They pass it back up court. They get a layup. So at that moment, some people would have been like, "Damn, that must have been so embarrassing." And for the moment, it was, but it wasn't. Like I was like, okay, I missed the dunk. I'm about to dunk next time, again. And I remember looking at my coach, and my coach was like, "Yo, just lay it up. Just lay it up." Now the embarrassment actually happened. So it wasn't the embarrassment wasn't there, right? That was just part of the game. What happened right after that was the coach took me out. So I had just started, worked a minute in the game. I still got all the energy in the world, and the coach takes me out, sits me on the bench, and I don't go in for like another 2 quarters. Now, after the game, he doesn't say anything to me. He doesn't talk to me about like why I needed to sit the bench, why you don't have to worry about dunking your freshman year 2 points or 2 points. There was no encouragement on that bigger that bigger conversation on basketball, on life. A little bit later in the season, we had 3 guys who were supposed to go up to JV. I was one of them. I foolishly listened to some homies, the other 2 who were supposed to be getting their elevation to JV. And they were like, "Yo, go ask for us." I was like, "Well, why don't y'all just go ask?" Like, man, you just speak better, and you'll ask it right. So can you just go ask them? Cool. So I go ask, "Hey, son, we'll let you know. Like, you're doing great. Keep working. Keep doing what you can in order to get to JV. And if we feel like you're there, we'll put you up." A week later, those 2 guys are on JV. I'm still sitting on the freshman team. And so there was a rejection that came into that space. And so a lot of times we don't care about the embarrassment, or you may have the guy who doesn't care about the embarrassment, but he may care about the rejection. So we'll talk about how this is going to actually be affected by style in 2 seconds. So he goes up to try to talk to the chick. This is the dude that we've all seen. Tries to talk to the chick. She says, "No, I'm good. I got a boyfriend," or like whatever the typical response is. And he's like, "Well, fuck you then, bitch. Yo, dragging mouth ass ain't even fine anyway." Right? You feel embarrassed, but you feel embarrassed by the rejection. Now, the reality of it is nobody heard her say, "I got a man. I'm good. Thank you, but I'm okay." And a dude who's well developed and really understands himself is going to be like, "Say less. Yo, it was a pleasure meeting you. Can I at least get your name?" Like, "I don't give out my name." "Okay, miss, I don't give out my name." Bro, I can't tell you how many homies I knew that used to have no problem with young ladies. It wasn't their rejection, it wasn't the rejection that got them the young lady, it was always the follow-up to the rejection. I've seen this in sales. Like, oh, I got rejected, but it was how I responded to the rejection that actually gets me further on in the sales process. And if we're talking about dating, all you're doing is selling yourself, right? And that sales opportunity in that space. So the rejection can be painful, but it can be a quick, if you know how to adjust. It's just a good signal that, oh, okay, that sounded contrived, or that sounded like something that she probably heard 100 times today. This is something that may have made her feel uncomfortable. How did I approach her? You don't have to overthink these things, but you can assess the rejection with that pain point so that you can adjust. Now, in style, a lot of guys don't realize that the rejection is often around the tribalism, right? So this happened to a homeboy when we were young. We were in college. Me and my homeboy used to always dress up. We were, in my opinion, arguably the best dressed dudes in any club we went to, because we were throwing on suits, ties, slacks. It was the whole thing. And this was just as the whole business casual look was happening in the club. We'd be sweaty in dress shirts and button downs, right? And so my homeboy, who was my other friend's really close friend, he was like, "Man, I ain't doing that. I don't care about none of that. Ain't nobody worried about that." Until this only happened one time. We tried to go out to the club, and he didn't have on proper attire, so we got rejected. And I remember him getting super defensive because we were, feeling away. We were like, "Man, seen some fine girls in here. We can't even get into the club, bro." He's like, "Man, it ain't that serious." Went off, right? And I realized, oh, that was a pain point for him. And when we actually broke it down and started talking about it, what we realized is it wasn't that he didn't want to dress well, it's that he didn't know how to dress well. And every time he tried to put something together, he felt like it was rejected. Not even necessarily from the peer group, the homies, but from young ladies. Like, ladies would look at him crazy or whatever. And I think it's interesting to make this caveat. A comedian said, like, girls and guys are different, right? So if a girl comes out and she looking crazy, she has something that is just not flattering, it just doesn't work for her. They'll be like, "Girl, if you don't go upstairs and change, you look a mess. Like, we need to go get some makeup. We're gonna do hair. We're gonna do all these things." Your homie let you come down looking crazy will still roll with you. Make sure that people know that that's your homie and be like, "This nigga look crazy. He looks terrible." And it's because there's a competitive undertone, at least initially when you start talking about style. But that competition fuels elevation, right? So when he got rejected, he immediately started doing something that a lot of guys don't do, that I didn't do for my tooth, that I didn't do when I was feeling under the weather. And he asked for help. He asked us, me and my homeboy, for help. "Hey, can you help me put some looks together?" And I remember us finding a dynamic look that worked for him at the time. And it was just a vest, jeans, some hard bottoms. And you remember hard bottoms, you couldn't get into the club with sneakers, you had to have hard bottoms on. And then dress shirts, button downs that were rolled up, and he would wear his tie loosened. If we were going to another club that was a little bit more urban, he would take off the tie, potentially take off the vest, and he was still in there like swimwear. And I remember him feeling so much more confident because of his competence, because he knew this is like a fire look. This is what works for him. And so even when he was rejected, when we were trying to talk to chicks, that's the only reason we we're going to the club, right? Well, he was like, "All right, say less, man. There's still three other chicks over here checking for me." Now, he never said that, but that was always his attitude. And so a lot of times we're thinking about rejection in the wrong way. The rejection should provide reflection and then readjustment. So if you are rejected in fitting a garment, a garment can reject you, right? You try on something and it's tight, right? They go up a size, it still feels tight. It feels tight here, it feels tight on the overarm, the chest, you're bowing, all these other different types of situations, right? But you say to the clothier, "I normally wear a 52," right? A clothier can say, "Man, I don't want him to reject me, so we'll figure it out. We'll just let everything out." I can't tell you how many clothiers have done that, right? Instead of paying attention to their shoulder line and being able to have a conversation with them, so that we're rejecting the idea that is false or that is incorrect or may not any maybe serving you any longer, so that we can actually help you reflect on what you need to readjust to. So a lot of times my customers will be like, well, I always wear a 52 or a 42. Okay, cool. Well, where do you get your jackets from? Oh, I go to Brooks Brothers. Okay, cool. So let's just have a quick conversation about the two different pieces that you're wearing. One, when you're wearing Brooks Brothers, it's a much fuller cut, right? And it is going to be cut wider in a lot of areas. What you're wearing now is a European or in some cases an Asian type of cut. They don't cut in inches, they cut in centimeters. So a 52 is closer really to a 41 if we were to take the measurements out. So taking you up to a 54 will have you closer to a 53. It'll potentially be more comfortable. And there's some other things that we will talk about with how to adjust for your body. So then they no longer feel like they're insecure, feeling embarrassed because the clothing has rejected them. And that happens, like I said, from time to time. I see the fear in their eyes as soon as they're like, it's too tight. What are we gonna do? We're gonna take it off. We're gonna try on something, try on something else, right? And they don't want to be rejected by their peer group. Now, this also happens in social spaces where a lot of homies or a lot of colleagues can be going out to a business meeting. And we saw this in Suits. If you guys have ever watched Suits, there's a great example of this. Harvey is going with Mike, and Mike shows up in a, honestly, it's probably like an H&M suit. And he's like, what the hell do you have on? And he's like, it's a suit. And he's like, no, it's not. You need to go to my tailor. Now, Mike is so brilliant that he's not embarrassed by this. And he knows that he's so brilliant that he can't be rejected. But if you watch that first episode again, Harvey's more worried about the rejection. He's worried about what his peers are going to think with having this genius level kid looking a mess and being his understudy, right? Being his protege. And so he always is trying to get Mike into better suits, which I agree with. But Mike didn't really need that. Mike was so brilliant that that always outweighed his first impression, right? That's TV though. So there's been plenty of times where I have clients who come in and they want to elevate their wardrobe because they've been embarrassed, because they've shown up overly casual, or they don't know what actually works for them. And so they're wearing stuff that is too tight, especially right now, right? They're wearing the Lululemon pants that are so tight on they derrieres, their behinds that like it looks like they were trying to attract somebody. Take that for what you are. And maybe they are. And now we're seeing on the other side with the fashion trend, the paradigm switching back to a fuller cut, a lot of these smaller guys getting these really big pants. And I have a client right now, he's a lawyer, a father of three, and he got some pants from a designer and wanted us to hem them. And he put them on. They look like Janko jeans. Y'all remember Janko jeans? The jeans that went like this, like crazy. And I'm like, oh, this is a lawyer. This dude who's making really good money. This dude who is proficient in this field, knows what he's talking about. But he didn't want to be rejected. He didn't want to be dismissed as somebody who wasn't up on the time. And what he doesn't realize is that he is going to be rejected because his kids are probably going to say something to him like, Dad, why are you wearing that? That doesn't look good. You look like an old man trying to be young. He's still going to feel those feelings of rejection. And if his wife doesn't like it, he's going to feel those feelings of rejection from the people who need to revere and respect him the most. The other side of this is imagine if he ended up as a lawyer going out, being fashionable or whatever, and he sees a client who's more conservative, on a conservative tip. He sees two or three clients, and they're like, to themselves, "Is that you?" If he's not gonna turn around and be like, "Hey man, how you doing? Let's talk. If we need to talk some business, we can do that right then and there." There's a feeling of rejection, and we've all had that. Like, is that you? And you're like, God damn it, I got caught lacking, right? So the better thing to do is for you to be true and authentic with yourself, learning what actually works for you in different scenes and scenarios that you find yourself in. And this doesn't mean that you can't keep up with fashion trends, although I advise that you don't. You can do whatever you want though there. You should be able to still pay attention to the sartorial trends. If they're going a little bit wider, you're not going wide, you're just going a little bit more full. What's the difference between wide and full? Well, wide is usually going to come out, right? Full is going to just give you more breath, especially in the pant leg. So when you start thinking about wide, you can think in an extreme way bell bottoms. If you want to think about full, you can think about what they call a stovepipe pant, where it just goes up and down, right? So in any of those cases, you're not going to be rejected because you're always going to be relevant. You're always going to be paying attention to what works best for you, where you are in your chapter in your life, and the spaces and places that you need to be. Now, the last feeling of pain is the feeling of lack, right? And this usually shows up in the communication and in your closet. So I had a homie who's doing very well for himself now. I'm super proud of him and admire him for the things that he's been able to do. He, when I first met him, had like a few pieces that he could wear. Good looking guy, fit, young, and his homie was able to get like all the latest pieces. And this is when we were doing suits and all that stuff. So he could go to the local spot, get all these pieces. His mom would fund him with some money. And he was also a good looking guy, but he had a whole lot more variance. And the young homie who didn't have a lot, I remember pulling him aside one time when we were at a party, and I was like, bro, whether you realize it or not, you're actually more stylish than your homie is. You know why? And he was like, well, nah, man, bro, I ain't got a whole lot of stuff in my closet. Like, I really don't have these 3 or 4 pieces that I can go to. I said, yeah, but that's what actually makes you more stylish. Because you have a lack, quote unquote, you have to be more strategic with what you have. You have to care more about what you have. You have to be more intentional about what you obtain, right? And so when I was going to the dentist today, my first conversation in like fear, false evidence appearing real, was I'm gonna owe like $12,000, and they're gonna say all your teeth are fucked up, and you might as well just give it up, right? Thank God for my dentist. My dentist was amazing. She was really, really nice, and all the nurses were nice. They were awesome. Um, and they went through, and they were like, "Well, how are you feeling?" And I was like, "Listen, I wasn't expecting good news, so I'll just take some news. Right? This is just news." What I've talked to my wife about is the more that we can get information, the less we have to feel afraid, because at least we know what's going on. How many times are you afraid to go to the doctor because you're afraid, you don't know what's going to happen? I had somebody very close to me. He didn't go to the doctor for 6 months, and everybody around him knew something was going on. Right. And now he may be dealing with some life altering health challenges. And my wife asked me this, and I don't know why we do it. I would love to hear some comments or some thoughts. She was like, why do y'all wait to like go to the doctor? Like, why do y'all wait to take care of these things? With me, I think I do have a fear, a irrational fear of doctors. Um, when I was young, it was because I thought I was gonna have to get a shot. Every time I went to the doctor, I used to ask my mom, like, "Am I gonna get a shot?" She'd be like, "No, baby, you're not gonna get a shot." She lied a few times. But most of the time, I wasn't getting a shot, right? And when I went this past time, I heard something I didn't want to hear. Oh, you got high blood pressure. And I was like, no, the fuck I don't. I'm not coming back here. And there is this fear, for me at least. I don't know if this resonates with anybody else, but there was this fear of like not really knowing what was going to go on, but then also the consequences that were going to come behind it. And so the feeling of lack would often come with the consequence of having to foot a bill. When I went to the doctor the first time, I had health insurance, but the previous time I hadn't gone. I mean, I went, I didn't have insurance, and my bill for like urgent care was like $400. And I was like, man, I can't afford to go to the doctor for annual checkups, and it's gonna be $400. And I remember one of my OGs, my old manager, mentor, he set me to the side. I was like, fool, that's what your insurance is for. I was like, I thought insurance was for emergency. He was like, no, it's for you to go get checkups so that you know what is going on with your body. He was like, far better for you to have any issues that you catch early on than for you to wait and then it gets really, really bad, right? And I don't know about you, but part of this is also me being a tough guy. I'm tough. Ain't nothing bothering me. I remember I got strep throat probably about 10 years ago, 10, maybe 15 years ago at this point. And the first 2 days, that's when I was single, called my homie. My homie calls me. He's like, yo, you good? You need anything? I was like, nah, bro. I'm straight. This is how I'm talking. I'm straight. All right, man. Holler at me if you need me. So that's Monday. By Thursday, bro, I'm writing my last will and testament. I am like, yo, I've just resigned that I'm gonna die on this couch alone and nobody's gonna find out about me until like I miss work a couple days in a row. So I call my homeboy up. His wife is like, yeah, go bring him some chicken noodle soup, whatever, whatever. Now, mind you, in this 4 days, I could have gone to the doctor. I could have gone to urgent care. And I had insurance at this time as well, again. But I didn't. And I was like, because it'll subside, it will pass, right? I don't want to be a wimp and go to the office and then they say like, you have a cold. What are you talking about, right? Feeling of embarrassment and a little bit of rejection, right? And in my mind, you will see the beautiful nurse that very rarely happens, right? Drop dead gorgeous nurse who's like, you came in for a cold? Oh, poor baby, right? Okay, man, it's some bull, right? But it turned out I had strep. Now, the urgent care person was a dude. He was like, listen, bro, I'm gonna give you some penicillin. Take this, and you'll be feeling like $1 million in a few days. 24 hours later, I was 80% well. And it didn't cost me a whole lot of money because I had insurance. Now, just as an aside, this isn't for any specific insurance company. Get you some insurance. Get you some insurance. Get you some insurance because that joint gets expensive otherwise, right? And it can be life alteringly expensive. I've learned firsthand if you're not careful. So there was this feeling of lack, and even when I went to the dentist today, my insurance covers a lot of stuff, but my deductible wasn't high, and so I was like, man, this joint is $6,000. Like I'm gonna be paying like 5,000 because my copay is only gonna cover 1,000. Then I got the actual numbers. I was like, oh, I'm straight, right? And so Zeb Kohler says one of the reasons to push off doctor's appointments is because schedule is too busy and it's hard to make long-term plans. Not a good reason, but being honest, true. So my mom gave my wife this advice. She was like, "You need to schedule his appointments, the doctor's appointments for him." And my wife was like, "He's a grown man. He knows how to do this." And she was like, "I still schedule his father's doctor's appointment." And it's partly because guys get busy, they don't think about it. And I've told my wife this numerous times. I just don't think about it. You think about those things, and all I'm thinking about is where we need to get to, how we need to get there, those things of that nature. So it is good, as Nicole says, uh, to go right to just put it on your schedule. Zev says he hates making long-term appointments. I just look at it now. We've already had a conversation that this year we are just going to make a point to make it like a date night. We can't do couples checkups, but we'll go to the doctor at the same time, schedule it for the same day, and just go together. That way, we're both up on our physical health. We know what's going on, and we can navigate through it. But there is never any lack. I started to realize, right? So we always hear that things are happening to us. Man, why is this happening to me? And I remember Tony Robbins, and I enjoy Tony Robbins. I enjoy anybody with the growth mindset. He was like, man, these things aren't happening to you; they're happening for you. And so I started to realize, like that pain that we feel is happening for me to recognize something is off, something is amiss, something is awry, and I need to address it. Right? Sometimes you need to step into a dressing room and just address these things. And this pain could be physical, like with my jaw, right? Pause. It could be uh, internal. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to said they had some heart pain. They thought it was indigestion. They had it 2 or 3 times in a row, or over the course of like 3 weeks. Didn't go to the doctor, then ended up having a heart attack. And I'm talking about uh, early on, right? Like that they could have caught something and they didn't. Sam Cole says you go to OBGYN? No, but there are family practices that can assist with both people. So no, I don't. You got jokes. But in those spaces, I started to think like, oh, like if it's painful because you're embarrassed, if it's painful because you've been rejected, if it's painful because you don't have a lot, it's interesting that that will be a signal, a sign that you need to focus on this. So when I'm talking to guys who are like, man, it doesn't, I don't have a lot of clothes to just be buying like you do. I remember a homie, or not a homie, but an acquaintance said that. And I said, or is it that you aren't being intentional about what it is that you want? He was like, what you mean, man? Like, you can go to New York, you can do these different types of things to grab these clothes. I said, and you could too. No, man, I don't even live close to New York. I said, okay, so what would it then mean if you saved up your money, you then saved some money for shopping, and then you came to New York to shop? What would that look like? Why can't you do that? And it was because he really didn't want to elevate in that space. That was a signal for him that, oh, I don't have the things that I want or the things that I say that I want. But it also was a point of recognizing what do I want to do in order to get that. I've had guys who will tell me, whether it's working with me one on one and helping me develop their style to getting a custom piece. Like, man, I saved for this. I saved a year for this. And I'm like, every time I've heard somebody say that or make that declaration, it does two things for me. It makes me want to give them an even higher level of service to walk them through everything that they're going to experience because it means way more to them. And two, it makes me proud because I know that even though they may only have that one suit, that one shirt, the way that they're going to care for it, the way that they're going to utilize it, the way that they're going to be strategic about it is usually second to none. They're going to be so mindful, and I always like to say, have their mind full of how do I need to take care of this? Oh, he said hang up the pants this way. He said hang it up on the hanger this way, right? He said don't take it to the dry cleaners. And I saw some style guy say like, oh, you should be taking your clothes to the dry cleaner once a month. I think. Be careful about who you listen to. Be careful about who you listen to. I'll just leave it there. Um, but also, just like my homie who only had the few looks that he could utilize, it started to actually create a signature look for him. He knew I can throw this on, I can put this shirt on. Okay, I have this other shirt that I can utilize. I have this long sweater, right, that I can put on, a crew neck sweater. I don't have to wear a shirt under it. Um, I hope you. I just heard Zach Kohler say that guy owns a cleaner. I hope so. 'Cause that's terrible. Terrible advice. Um, and he started to come up. He started to develop. He started to progress at work, and he came back in and he got another custom suit. And he was strategic with that one. And then he came in. He got another sport coat and some shirts. He was strategic with that. So much so that he started to realize, oh, I haven't seen him in a little while, right? But he got 4 or 5 items. He was like, that's all I need. And when I did see him, it had been a couple of years. I was like, man, what's going on? Like, what's good? He's like, bro, you did too good. Like I got everything I need. And he had on one of the jackets that he had gotten in the beginning, still looked immaculate. Right? Because he realized this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me, so that I actually have an appreciation. If you appreciate something, it grows. It grows in awareness, it grows in the value, it grows in the opportunities that you can leverage in those spaces. And so as I'm navigating through this pain, right? And thank you guys for being on with me because that helped take some of the pain off my mind. I'm starting to realize that sometimes we as men need to go through the painful things in order for us to really pinpoint what is going on with us so that we can either choose to address it or we can ignore it. But just know if you're ignoring a problem, it's only going to get bigger, right? And also, for us to realize this is happening for our betterment. As long as we have breath in our lungs and as long as we can continue to evolve, we got a chance to win. We got a chance to win. And even if a dressing room, right, takes 50 years to manifest, right, to successful areas. And I'm 90, in my 90s, and we see rocket launching success, and then I kill over and die. Knowing my family is taken care of, and my family is understanding my philosophy and my perspective, that means the world to me. And whether you realize it or not, in the problems, in those difficult times, those are the spaces that we remember the most. It's actually not the good times, the super high times when everything was good and everything was up. It's when you're down that you remember who called, you remember who reached out, you remember who was there for you, you remember how you navigated, you remember how strong you were, you remember how resilient you were, you remembered how clever and strategic you were, right? Those are the spaces that help you continue to elevate to the good times. And then there's another challenging time, and you remember those things, and it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it requires us to move. But that's the last thing about pain. Pain will force you to make a decision. Either I'm gonna continue to suffer in this uncomfortable state, or I'm gonna get up and do something about it. And when you get up and do something about it, it's usually never as bad. Usually, it never, that was an oxymoron there. It's usually not as bad as you think it is. And that's a powerful position to put yourself in, is to have the information so that you're no longer making assumptions about how bad it is when it could actually be, and it is for your benefit. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. I'm about to get off. I hope my prescription is done. Y'all keep me in your prayers. Because my tooth is bad. Like I can't. That's as wide as my mouth can open. Pause. All right, I can't even. It's hard for me to even eat right now. So keep me in your prayers. I'll be back. I'm good. Even if shoot, I'm speaking like this till next week. Still gonna be on here. Outside of that, be great today. Then again, you already are. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style and realize that the painful moments, right, are happening for you, not to you. And there is a point that you need to address. So you already are great. Now all you got to do is show up and show out in style, remembering that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's state of mind. So you, yes, you should always dress to address your life and your style. New YouTube video will be up in a few. So make sure you check that out. And outside of that, I'll see you next week. Yeah, Zeb, I already took some Advil. That joint didn't work. So we will see you next week. Peace.